My husband and I are from entirely different cultures. His family has always been overbearing, especially his mother. He's always helped them out financially or with food. He had 6 siblings and his parents were always struggling. This was fine until he got laid off from his good-paying tech job and we had to start budgeting. He still gives his family money to the point that I already opened a non-joint checking account and I have my checks directly deposited there to ensure bills are paid. I come home early from work and his mom goes through our freezer and fills up bags of food for herself and her adult children who still live at home. I lost my crap on his mom, who's always been a homemaker, and told her to get a job and stop stealing our food. My husband, her and I got into this huge screaming match after I spoke to his mother, how I'm not supporting an able-bodied adult who can get a job and they need to assimilate into our culture now that his family lives here because food is too damn expensive for her to shop from my fridge. This escalated to me being called names, insensitive and worse. I've repeatedly been called racist over this. I packed 2 suitcases in front of his mother and I'm staying with my family. I do not care if an eviction is on my credit report and I'm no longer helping him or his freeloading family. I've had lots of slurs towards me over the last few days when my husband tried to talk to me about our debts. I told him he could sue me, but I know right now he cannot afford the place we live in, the utilities or even the food, so I really don't care about him or his freeloading family right now. Am I the idiot for starting a fight over groceries? Edit. I get that, but they knew this country was more expensive, especially now with inflation. Most families have dual incomes, so her BS of not working to take care of the home isn't working on me, especially since her children are adults and she now has 2 grandchildren at home. The dad and sons don't lift a finger at home and say things as they've never done dishes or changed a diaper, which is something to brag about. Still, his dad stopped working the minute he could get any retirement and sits around doing nothing with one of the brothers who is disabled. Not the idiot, though it sounds like you made a big error in marrying this man. You aren't obligated to allow your husband's grown-down family to steal from you. Since the siblings living with mom are adults, you were subsidizing more than one able-bodied adult. Block your husband, do not give him any more money, and do not pay the bills. Ignore slurs. You would feel the same about anyone of any race. This is a cultural issue, not a racial one. You are not an idiot for not wanting to acquiesce to his cultural views. Maybe you can try and make him see sense by pretending to go along with it. Actually, you're right, family is really important. I have 2 uncles, an aunt and an adult cousin who don't work and who are also financially struggling. You want to send X dollars a month from our shared earnings to your family? I'll only consider that if you're okay with me sending the same amount of money from our shared earnings to my family. £100 says that somehow this is different. 6 siblings, his mother and father and 2 children have children. She's supporting 10 people. It's ridiculous to be responsible for supporting his entire family instead of them getting work and buying their own food. I would lose it if someone came into my home and went shopping with 0 notice or approval, especially if you're the one paying for everything. You have freeloaders. But I would take pictures of the place so your landlord can know the damages that may happen are not on you. I can see the soon-to-be ex-moocher busting stuff up. Update, I have a meeting with the landlord tomorrow and an attorney next week to start the divorce paperwork. The landlord would rather me stay since I'm working and have my husband leave. The attorney and the landlord said they would work together on this. Husband offered to get any job if I don't leave him or cut off his family, but I think it's too late for that. My now wife divorced her ex when her 3 kids were young. He was an addict. She met me a few years later and we dated for 2 years before she introduced me to her kids. 2 kids really hit it off and Kelly didn't like me. Just passive-aggressive stuff, but it became much worse when her dad passed away. She did not take it well and resulted in a lot of outbursts. I wasn't living there at this time. She went into therapy, but overall it didn't seem like it helped. She threatened to run away if I married their mom, so I stayed away but continued to date their mom. Over time, the other 2 kids started to stay at my place to get away from the drama. It was a rough time for them and we bonded even more. When Kelly was 18, the 2 of us decided to stop putting our lives on hold and get married. Kelly hated this. The other kids were happy though. Every interaction I've had with her has been unpleasant and I don't see her as one of my kids. I eventually adopted her siblings when they were teens. They asked me. During that time, she destroyed much of her siblings' stuff for betraying their dad. Now I rarely see her and I prefer it that way. The 2 kids have an on and off again relationship. I paid for my 2 kids' wedding. I got a call from her asking me to pay for her wedding since I paid for the other two. I told her no. This started an argument about how it's unfair. I had enough and told her to have her dead dad pay for the wedding. She hung up after some lovely names. I may have gone too far, which makes me an idiot. Edit, she's 27 right now. Everyone's the idiot. Yeah, she's an entitled brat to think she can treat you like garbage and then expect you to fund her wedding. However, you sure acted like garbage when you mocked her for having a dead father. You owe an apology, but not a wedding fund. OP does not owe her an apology. Kelly is 27. Has she apologized for all the crappy behavior she's throwing around? What I need help understanding is the thought process behind her asking. Is she trying to make amends? And the most important question, does she expect you to pay and not attend her wedding? What exactly is she expecting? Obviously, you could have taken the high road, but I too will be angered by that outrageous demand from somebody that clearly doesn't respect me. I'm no psychologist, so this could be total BS, but it almost seems like she just did it so she could have another reason to justify hating her stepdad. I doubt she thought he would say yes. Kelly sees you as an ATM. She's not shown remorse or regret for her past behavior. She thought you would be an easy mark, but you're not. Good for you. I'd love to hear Kelly's side of this story. She sounds traumatized, plus this narrative also sounds like you treated her differently from her siblings. Likely from day one if she was the difficult kid. The outcast in her family for struggling with complicated grief over the loss of her unworthy father. So I feel like we're not seeing the whole story through your perspective, and I can't make a judgment about the family dynamics at large because of that. But for the comment itself, yes, of course, you are the idiot. You know that. I think you meant to be cruel, hoping she'd just stop calling you. So, a little backstory. My husband's friend moved in with us temporarily because he got kicked out of his family home. He's been a great guest, honestly. He pays his rent, takes us out to dinner and cooks for us. Everything has been very nice. He works a graveyard shift, so we only see him a few hours a day, usually in the evenings. A few weeks ago, someone broke into our house at around 2 or 2:30 a.m. Luckily, our bedroom had a deadbolt, so I locked myself in and told him I was calling the police. He grabbed a few things and booked it. Luckily, we have security cameras, so the cops were able to find him quite easily. That's being taken care of right now. What confused me at the time was that our security system didn't go off. We set it every night, and if a door is opened and the system isn't disarmed after a certain amount of time, the police are contacted. The night of the incident, the system was disarmed and I felt like an idiot. I felt like I put myself in danger. That was until my husband's friend, I'll just call him Dan from now on, told my husband and me the truth. Dan had been disarming the security system and leaving the front door unlocked every single night. He told us it was easier to just come home after a long shift and not have to deal with unlocking the door every day and turning off the system. My husband and I were gobsmacked. I flat out told Dan he couldn't live here anymore. He was surprised for some reason, but luckily my husband backed me up. He told Dan he wasn't going to risk me to keep a roof over his idiot head. He'd rather have me and lose him. Dan was double surprised. Apparently he thought my husband would bend for him, but he reluctantly agreed. He's now completely moved out. All he brought was a computer and his clothes, so it didn't take long. Now some of our mutual friends are getting into our business and telling us we're bad people because Dan has had to couch surf and even had to stay in a shelter one night. I told the mutual friends who were complaining that they were right and that I'd tell Dan they were stepping up and taking him in, which obviously made them backtrack immediately. I'm just tired of people who are supposed to be our friends calling us terrible people and being so hypocritical because no one's willing to help out Dan like we did. It's just really starting to guilt me though. So, am I the idiot for making our friend basically homeless for causing a break-in? Edit, unfortunately my husband wasn't home at the time of the break-in, he was away with work. It was literally just me, which made it 10 times scarier. Not the idiot. Dan was an absolute lazy and careless idiot for putting you and your home at risk like that. You could have been assaulted or killed if the person who entered your house had a mind to do so. I'm glad your husband supported you in this decision. The friends who are kicking up a stink can take him in. Dan can reimburse you for the stolen items as a direct result of his stupidity if they've not been recovered. My cynical self wonders if Dan set it up. I'd also recommend changing your alarm code and locks too. You were in real danger due to his stupidity and laziness. Continue what you've been doing and double down with the flying monkeys. Call out their hypocrisy and tell them you've done more than any of them. It's their turn now to be the good friends they expect you to be, publicly if you must. But at least your husband is backing you up on this decision. That's all that matters. Who cares what other people are saying about you guys? Why aren't they taking him in then? Why is it all on you guys? It's not fair for them to hold that standard for you, especially after you did and he caused this to happen to you. It's the sad reality, but the dude has to figure his stuff out. It sounds like he's a grown adult. Backstory: my ex-husband, male 26, the father of my child, and I, female 25, got divorced in 2021. Since then, I've had to beg, plead and force any kind of contact between my child and his father. When our divorce was finalised, my ex was always too busy to ever respond to my texts or calls to try and let him see my child. This did change recently when he got a new, very sweet girlfriend, 25. My husband, 38, and I got together after my separation from my ex-husband started, and he's very involved in my child's life. For the last 3 years that we've been together and married, he's spent more time with my child than my ex has ever done without me even asking. Recently, my ex approached my husband and me and asked if my husband would adopt my child so he could get out of child support. My husband and I are overjoyed to start the process because we truly think it will benefit my child. About 2 months into getting the attorney, paperwork and funds together, my ex-mother-in-law found out and seemed upset. I understand this is hard for everyone involved, but this was her son's idea. Side note, when my ex-husband was refusing to make time for my child, she would sneak my child over to see him and not inform me. She would then lie to my face when I found out and raise concerns that the court order dictated that I was to have knowledge of all visitations and communications due to safety concerns during our divorce. We're still going through with the adoption, but I'm afraid she'll try and talk my ex into trying to fight it. Am I the idiot or selfish in this? My child's well-being is all I'm trying to protect. Not the idiot. Your ex should have talked to his mother about this. Once he approached your new husband, who sounds wonderful, about the adoption, that whole side of the family stopped being your problem. Your concern is the child's welfare. It sounds like you're doing everything right. If your former mother-in-law is upset, maybe she should have raised her son better. I'm not entirely sure that the nearly 40-year-old who started dating a 21-year-old, as she notes, after my separation started, so technically before her divorce at 22 when he was in his mid-30s, is a good man, whether or not he's nice to her child. I suspect, as someone significantly older than both of them, that OP's picker is broken or that she is exceptionally naive and this situation isn't going to end well in the long run either. Obviously, only time will tell, but no man in his mid-30s should have been interested in a young woman barely out of her teens. The fact that he got involved with her at a time in her life when she was deeply vulnerable, newly separated, barely into her 20s, with a baby, just makes it so much more worrisome. It's very easy to gloss over the details of that age gap, but given the specific ages, it isn't irrelevant or unimportant. My husband and I are doing okay financially. We make enough to not worry about rent and necessities, save a decent amount, and have scope for growth in our careers. I make a little more than a third of our combined income. We're both in our late 30s, and we have 2 young grammar school-aged boys. I've never liked my husband's family, most of them anyway, because they have a lot of old-fashioned opinions and don't really approve of me. We don't have a lot of contact, so it's okay though. My husband's cousin's wedding is this week and they're getting married in our city, so he offered to have his parents, aunt and uncle stay with us. The bride and groom are renting a place. It's a bit of a squeeze, but it's working. They've been here for 2 days now, and on the first day, I heard them discussing how it's so sad that our children won't get to have a proper childhood with a mom at home as my husband and his cousin got. They knew I could hear while they were in the living room and I was in the kitchen. I was stewing, but I don't really like confrontation, so I didn't say anything. Later, I asked my husband if he could please tell them to shut up with the snide comments about me. He said that's just their opinion and it's not really hurting me. If I'm bothered, I should learn to stick up for myself, and that he can't always do it for me. This sort of struck a nerve because it's true that I usually ask him to do small things like telling the drive-thru person if our order is wrong. It just makes me feel weird and guilty, but somehow it feels like more his responsibility because it's his family involved here. Anyway, so today, my father-in-law made one more pointed comment during dinner, and I said your son makes XXX. We live in a big city and the rent is XXX. We literally cannot live on his salary, so I don't know why you think I should be home all day. They were pretty quiet after that. Now my husband is really angry with me because I put him down in front of his family, who are all richer than us and will look down on him. Am I the idiot? Definitely not the idiot. Your husband and in-laws, however. Common sense dictates that you have their back if your family has a problem with your spouse. Still, I think you handled things perfectly, given that your husband is a textbook idiot and doesn't defend you when he should. He doesn't get to be mad for how you chose to do what he said. You just took his advice. Also, is he a teenager? Why is he so pressed about his family knowing such trivial things as your rent and general income? If he didn't want you to say those things, he should have had your back, I guess. Your husband wants you to stand up for yourself, and you did. You are not staying at home, in part because their son does not earn enough for you to stay at home. It's telling that your husband didn't mind when you were being put down, but is now angry because his family will look down on him. I wonder how he justifies the double standard.